Hey, what's good, fam? It's Kyle Henderson, Andrew Bone. You know what we do on Tuesday night. We talk recruiting, and we're here with Andrew Bone to talk about now the number one ranked team in college football recruiting rankings-wise, Alabama Crimson Tide, as Alabama has surpassed Ohio State. We got Andrew Bone to talk about this dynamic recruiting class from the class 2021. I mean, the momentum that Alabama has had has just been ridiculous. Recently, we talked with Jalen Milroe. Check that interview out on our YouTube channel. What a phenomenal young man. I mean, that was one of my favorite interviews that, we've had right here on BamaInsider.com. But, Bone, you feeling good, man? I mean, big day for Alabama.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, we've been saying this for months that, just be patient, when the rankings are updated, when, kids start making decisions, Alabama was going to, they were going to make a run. And they currently rate as the number one recruiting class in the country, according to rivals.com at this moment. Now, we all know that things can change, pretty quickly around here. And, I think Alabama, Ohio State, may go back and forth, for the next few months because of, I think Ohio State could be close to, pulling in another commitment here pretty soon. And, I certainly believe that Alabama could be also close to getting another commitment. So I think we could possibly see Ohio State jump ahead of Alabama again, possibly even this week, and maybe Alabama goes back to number one, maybe next week. So it's going to be kind of a back and forth recruiting battle between both those schools for the number one spot for the next, few months. So it's going to be exciting. But, the fact that Alabama has at least surpassed Ohio State at this moment, I think that speaks volumes to the Alabama coaching staff, the job they've been able to do, the guys that they've been able to pull in thus far. Because, as we've talked about, a few months ago, there were just so many unknowns. There were so many guys that, had not made their decisions yet. There was a lot of guys who we knew they were going to get, their ranking bumped up once the new rankings came out. We saw that, today with J.C. Latham, who had been really, in the top 100 for a long time. He was number 75. And I think he still, looks, I think if you look at his profile, it still says number 75, but he moved up to number 23 overall in the Rivals 100 today. So big move for him. I mean, that puts him squarely in the 5-star category, even though Rivals has not expanded their 5 stars past 20, usually do about 35 5-stars in each recruiting class. So he's in that 5-star category right now. Another guy that made a big move today was Christian Leary, one of the fastest overall players in the country. It was actually outside the Rivals 250, was rated as a 4-star. And then all of a sudden, when the new rankings came out, moved all the way to number 43 in the Rivals 100. So tremendous move for him. I know that Rob Cassidy, the state of Florida recruiting analyst, very high on him. He actually got a chance to see him a couple of weeks ago. Well, I think it was maybe about a month or so ago. So everybody wants to know, why are these updated rankings coming out? A lot of kids haven't been seen, who's been seen, stuff like that. There have been a few 7-on-7 events. There's been, some showcases that recruiting analysts have been able to get out to. It hadn't been a lot of kids, but it's been enough where they can go see some kids and give an appropriate ranking. So that's why we saw some of these guys throughout the country move up in the rankings. Some moved down, but overall, there's a lot of guys that did not move up. There's a lot of guys who kind of stayed the same, and pretty much the reason for that is because they just haven't been seen. We talked to Josh Helmholt, who covers the Midwest region. We asked him about Devontae Smith's ranking. He was a 3-star that we talked about, would probably make a significant move in the updated rankings. But speaking with Josh, the state of Ohio is going to have high school football this season. He plans on going and seeing Devontae Smith, and frankly, he just hasn't seen him since last football season. So I can understand that. No reason why he didn't think there was any reason why he should move up just because he committed to Alabama. He wants to go see a guy in person, give a firm evaluation. Kind of the same with Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner was somebody that I felt like should have made a significant move. I think he's a top 50 overall player in the country. I think he's currently rated as number 136, and a lot of people are going to, probably complain about that ranking. But, speaking with Rob Cassidy, he was another guy that, just hasn't been seen since last football season. So, they really wanted to see him one more time, at least in person. And South Florida may not have high school football this season. So, hopefully he's going to be able to get out and at least go see him, maybe spend a day with him. And there's a lot of little showcase camps that are going on, throughout the country. So there may be something like that. He can go see him. But if you go back and read on rivals.com, Mike Farrell actually put out an interesting story today, kind of his thoughts on the Rivals 250 and guys that he feels like are going to eventually end up being 5-stars on rivals.com. And even though Dallas Turner wasn't in the Rivals 100, he was one of the few guys that he mentioned as a guy that he feels like is a 5-star player. So that's something to kind of watch out for down the road. He also mentioned Christian Leary as a potential 5-star down the road. So, I definitely think that Alabama's got a chance to really add some, more stars to their recruiting class. I mean, you look at the class right now with Tommy Brockermeyer being the only 5-star, but there are 7 guys in the Rivals 100, or excuse me, I guess let me rephrase that. 7 guys who are ranked in the top 47 in the Rivals 100 that are all committed to Alabama. So I think that is significant. And you look at, J.C. Latham, going to end up being a 5-star. Ja'Cory Brooks, rated in the top 25 right now, got a great chance to be a 5-star. As Mike Farrell pointed out, Dallas Turner, Christian Leary all have opportunities to become 5-stars. Damon Payne, Monkel Goodwine. Alabama could end up with 6 or 7 5-stars in this recruiting class when all is said and done, and that would certainly put them probably at the number 1 overall spot. I think Ohio State's certainly going to get some more big time players, but it's going to be an absolute dogfight to the finish line in this recruiting class for that number 1 overall spot.
All right, we're here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Each Tuesday night, we talk recruiting. Want to definitely give a shout out to our Super Chat Hall of Honor. Here's an updated look. These are all our contributors that contribute to the show weekly. So thank you so much for all your support right here. You got the gold status on the left, Club 100, box seats, everyone, certainly moving on up. Thank you very much for all the contributions. Also, you can hit the join button at the bottom of this video to become a member of the Touchdown Club or the Loyalty Club. Thank you very much to all our support right here on BamaInsider.com. Remember, all super chats tonight go to Andrew Bone. And we actually got one question in, Bone, from Paul Robinson, who was our first super chat tonight. So let's get to him real quick. Bone, where do we go at the DB since it's looking like JaQuincy could be going elsewhere?
Yeah, I actually put in a future cast on rivals.com for JaQuincy McKinstry to Auburn today. And I had actually changed my future cast from Alabama to unlikely a few days ago. I think I put in a future cast for him back, several months ago for Alabama. Just, really felt like Alabama was in the driver's seat for him, several months ago. But, as the recruiting year kind of went on, I think with, his focus on basketball, really wanting to play both sports in college. I know that Alabama and Auburn have both heavily recruited him in both sports, but I think I think Bruce Pearl has done a great job recruiting him. I know Nate Oates has recruited him as well, but in my opinion, I think he's going to end up at Auburn at this time. So I wouldn't get too down because Alabama currently has 4 defensive back commitments in its recruiting class at this time. And there's still some big time guys who are out there. I said early on, 6 was probably going to be the absolute max number of defensive backs in this class. I think that maybe the number is going to be 5. So if they can get one more guy on board, they're going to be sitting pretty good. One of the top overall guys on Alabama's recruiting board is Terrion Arnold out of Tallahassee. Now, he has not released his top schools yet. That's going to happen on Friday. I certainly expect Alabama to be amongst those top schools, but a decision for him probably not coming anytime soon. But I think Alabama sits in pretty good shape with him. I know many people are predicting him to Alabama, but it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be an absolute dogfight to the finish line. He made a trip up to Georgia this past weekend, visited the campus, checked out all the surroundings and stuff like that. So I believe Georgia will be in that top group, but certainly Alabama, Florida State, Tennessee. Those are some schools that I certainly feel like will make his cut. A couple other defensive backs they're heavily recruiting include Jordan Gilbert out of Louisiana and Sage Ryan also out of Louisiana. So a couple guys that they're heavily involved in. We'll kind of see what happens throughout the process, and you never know. There's still some guys who are committed elsewhere that Alabama is still in contact with who could end up taking trips to Tuscaloosa at some point, before signing day. We've already seen 2 defensive backs flip from schools to Alabama, and Devontae Smith flipping his commitment from Ohio State to Alabama, and also Kadarius Callaway, who flipped his commitment from Mississippi State. Both of those guys flipping in July.
All right. Good stuff. And thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all the recruiting questions. You can put your recruiting questions now inside the comment box. I got a question for Bone real quick, and this is coming from myself. Bone, when we look at the in-state prospects, who could potentially be next? With maybe JaQuincy feeling a little bit more buzz going to Auburn, you have, Jeremiah Williams. We're not sure what he's going to do. Amari Goodwine, committed to Auburn. Who could be next in terms of an in-state guy that you feel Alabama might have a pulse on?
Alabama has the top recruiting class in the country right now, but the majority of those commitments are from out of state. Alabama doesn't really have a lot of in-state commitments, only 3 right now, and Deontay Lawson, Ian Jackson, both linebackers, and also Anquin Barnes, the defensive lineman. So where else do they turn? As of right now, like I said, I think JaQuincy McKinstry ends up going to Auburn. Armani Goodwin's another, outstanding running back for Hewitt Trussville, who had a great first game of his senior season the other night. Still, I think he's going to end up sticking with Auburn. Of course, I don't think Alabama's going to end up signing a running back in this class, in my opinion. But the only other guy I think they got a chance with is Tim Keenan, defensive lineman from Ramsey High School, 4-star prospect. We've talked about him, literally for years. He started getting recruited when he was just a freshman. When Alabama picked up a commitment a couple weeks ago from Damon Payne, I felt like Alabama was probably finished on the interior defensive line, and Keenan would probably end up, probably going to Georgia. And there was a lot of talk about Georgia, but in the last few days, really starting to hear some buzz about Alabama. I actually just put in a future cast for Alabama for Tim Keenan. He's going to be announcing a decision on Saturday. And I know he has an outstanding teammate in Jeremiah Williams, and I think with Alabama having 4 linebacker commitments, still recruiting Xavian Sorey, they're just not going to be able to take another linebacker right now. But I think Tim Keenan could potentially be the only other in-state prospect who commits to Alabama in this recruiting class.
All right. Recently, you had some information on Camar Wheaton, one of the top running backs, if not the top running back in the class of 2021. Can you give a little backstory on Camar Wheaton and Cameron Goolsby? What's up, man? We see you. So Camar Wheaton.
Yeah, Camar Wheaton, the number 1 running back in the country on Rivals.com, is the number 7 overall player in the country as well. He just came out with his top 3 schools on Monday evening: Alabama, Oklahoma, LSU. Many have felt like it's Oklahoma and then everybody else. He visited Oklahoma this past weekend, also visited Oklahoma for Junior Day earlier this year. So he's taken 2 trips to Norman in 2020, and that's pretty rare for any prospect to get 2 visits on a college campus in this crazy year that we have. And he has not visited Alabama, except for one time last summer. So Alabama's still heavily involved, heavily recruiting him. Think he would probably be the only running back that they would take at this time. But in my opinion, I think he's going to end up going to Oklahoma. Would not be surprised if we saw a decision, maybe within the next month or so. But as of right now, I don't think Camar Wheaton ends up at Alabama, even though there's some talk that Alabama's really made a strong move for him. I think he ends up at Oklahoma, but you never know. Maybe watch out for LSU there as well.
All right, another one coming in, and this is from we'll stay with Cameron as well, asking about kind of the latest on Amarius Mims.
Yeah, Amarius Mims, 5-star offensive lineman from Georgia, still plans on announcing a decision on October the 14th. Now, he has taken a couple trips to Tennessee and to Georgia in the last about month and a half. Hasn't visited Alabama yet. I know that there's been some talk about him coming over to Tuscaloosa for a trip. And Alabama certainly has been in the race, top 2, top 3 throughout the entire process. I just don't see him in Alabama's recruiting class. I know that I've been saying kind of in the last few weeks on the show, I think Alabama's got a chance, but just from him taking multiple trips to Knoxville and Athens and hasn't been to Tuscaloosa in quite a while. He did visit earlier this year for Junior Day, but that was his only visit. So I just think he's going to end up going somewhere else. And, Alabama has an outstanding offensive line class right now, 4 offensive linemen, 3 of those guys in the top 40 47 in the country, and TJ Ferguson and JC Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer. So, I think Alabama's sitting very good on the offensive line. I mean, absolutely they would love to have Amarius Mims, but I just think with their offensive line class that they have put together right now, I think it's probably going to not necessarily force Mims to go somewhere else, because he would certainly be a take in Tuscaloosa, but I think he's probably going to end up going to another school, maybe Tennessee or Georgia.
All right, we're going to stick with Cameron. Cameron, you got 3 questions in a row, man. Killing it. Cameron's on fire. This is the Cameron and Andrew Bone show. What's the latest on Kristian Zachary?
Kristian Zachary, very talented prospect. I think with him, I think Alabama just wants to see him a little bit this season. And obviously they can't see him in person, but they can get some game film. So, once the pads get put on and, Friday night lights come on, they'll be able to see him. I think, state of Georgia is a little funny this year because, there's about 4 different start dates in all different parts of the state. So I'm not exactly sure. He may be starting back on September this week. I'm not exactly sure, but I know Alabama wants to watch him very early on and kind of decide from there. But he's certainly on the radar, and certainly somebody that could potentially end up in Alabama's class, and somebody that we've talked about for the last month or so. He's a guy that had an incredible sophomore campaign, had 20 sacks during his sophomore season. Now, he missed a little bit of action during his junior year from an injury, but he's certainly somebody that a lot of schools hold in very high regard. But I think a lot of schools are also wanting to see kind of how he bounces back from last season.
All right, guess who? Cameron once again. All right, it's just Cameron, but he's bringing it. Latest on Tunmise Adeleye.
Yeah, Tunmise, it's kind of just a wait and see kind of deal with him right now. A lot of schools heavily recruiting him since his decommitment from Ohio State. Obviously, with Jalen Milroe decommitting from Texas and committing to Alabama, I think that Alabama's got a shot there, and he's heavily recruiting him. They were former teammates, and they know each other well. I think Alabama's certainly a strong contender for him. It's probably, I don't know, it's Alabama, Florida, Texas A&M. I think all those are probably the top 3 schools in the race for him at this moment. I don't see him back at Ohio State. I think it's going to be one of those 3 schools.
All right. We finally got one. This is our good friend, Vegas Man. I just have to put him out there. I know you already talked about Tim Keenan, but just wanted to give a shout out to Vegas Man because he certainly supports not only here on our YouTube channel, but back at BamaInsider.com. So we definitely see you. Bone, in terms of, looking at kind of the scope of guys who could potentially be next to jump on board. I mean, Jalen Milroe was the last prospect, and you can watch that great interview right here with Andrew Bone. Who are some guys that are committing next? Some guys who are about to make announcements, which we watch for as we get closer to the month of September.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we mentioned earlier, Tim Keenan will announce his commitment on Saturday, and I do think it's between Alabama and Georgia. I know that there's some other schools that are involved. Georgia Tech, UAB, but at the end of the day, I think I think LSU is also in that top 5, but I think it comes down to Alabama and Georgia, and I think he ends up choosing Alabama on Saturday. William Griffin Parker, another interesting prospect, set to announce a decision on September the 4th. Now, I've kind of gone back and forth in terms of, my feel on what he's going to do. I think a lot of that also had to do with, Alabama's offensive line numbers. Alabama has 4 offensive line commitments. What's going to happen with Amarius Mims? Will Alabama, take a 5th offensive lineman and still wait on Mims to make a decision? Well, I think they will. I think Alabama would, certainly accept a commitment from William Griffin Parker. I actually put in a future cast for him today on Rivals.com. So as of right now, predicting him to Alabama. Still think Tennessee's in it. I think it's a very tight battle. Could he end up going to Tennessee? Probably, possibly so, not probably so, possibly so. But as of right now, I think Alabama's got a great chance to land him, and they're pushing for him. They want him in this class. So as of right now, I think Alabama's going to end up getting him. A couple other guys that we're keeping an eye on. especially at the tight end position. Really watching out for Robbie Oots, tight end out of South Carolina, 3-star tight end out of South Carolina. I think there's there's an opportunity there for him to make a decision here pretty soon. I think a commitment can come within the next couple weeks. He's certainly somebody that we're going to be watching closely. We've mentioned Jalen Sheed out of Olive Branch, Mississippi, another guy that Alabama's been recruiting, but there's one other tight end that is in the mix. Ryan Hosterkamp is currently committed to Mizzou. Alabama's been showing a lot of interest, a lot of love towards him. I certainly think that he's in the mix now as well. So I don't see Alabama taking more than one tight end in this class. It's going to be one of those three guys, and it's probably who's going to pull that trigger first. And as of right now, I think it's probably going to be Robbie Oots, but you just never know. I would definitely keep an eye on Ryan Hosterkamp, a lot as well. See what happens with him.
All right, good stuff, Bone. And there you go, Tate. Tate had just asked about the tight ends, and then you got to the tight ends. So appreciate you doing that. All right, so just making sure it's taken care of, Tate. You also got a question coming in, and I think I saw it on here. Jacob, what's up, Jacob? We see you. Any news on Maason Smith?
Yeah, with Maason, not a ton. He's still going to drag this process out until probably signing day. He made a trip over to Athens this past weekend, Georgia, one of his top 4 schools. I imagine he's going to eventually make a trip to Tuscaloosa, whenever he can. He doesn't have anything set at this time, but it's a tight battle. I mean, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Miami, all those schools are in the race for him. But I know many people think that he's just, dead set on LSU. I really wouldn't rule out Alabama just yet because, he did grow up an Alabama fan. He's got a great relationship with the coaching staff. Freddie Roach has done a tremendous job recruiting him, and Pete Golding and Nick Saban. So Alabama's certainly in the race, but LSU, Georgia, certainly, very big time contenders in that, in that race for his commitment as well.
All righty, here we go. Alex, what's up, Alex? Alex has been on the show before. I assume he's asking about JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah, kind of the same thing with him. I mean, he kind of keeps things pretty quiet, very tight-lipped. Kind of go through the coaches on his end. So he's kind of like letting the season play out. He's not playing this season, so he's going to try to take some trips to some schools if he can. State of Washington is not having high school football this season, so he's just kind of sitting back and going to make a decision. I still think Ohio State probably has the advantage with him. I mean, he's certainly becoming a even bigger priority after they lost to Tunmise Adeleye recently, but he's still in very close communication with Alabama, so we'll see kind of what happens. But I do think he's going to have to at least get back to Tuscaloosa one more time before I want to make a prediction for Alabama.
All right, good stuff. Next up, we got Shemar Turner and kind of a timetable to commit or even trim his list.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to trim his list. He has a top 5. I don't know if he's going to trim that down to a top 3 or potentially a top 2. We'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens there. He did take an unofficial visit over to, I guess you can call it unofficial, over to Texas this past weekend. Now, these visits, you cannot have any contact, any communication with the coaching staff while you're on campus. Now you can check out all the facilities, you can see the campus, you can interact with players on the team. You just can't have any contact with the coaching staff. So he was in Texas this past weekend. Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, all remain very high on his list. We predict him to Alabama at this time, but long way to go. Long way to go in his recruitment, and I don't think a decision is going to happen anytime soon. I think he's going to, enjoy the process and probably commit, probably after the season.
All right, let's keep it going. Hey guys, just want to remind you, all super chats tonight go to Andrew Bone. You guys like the scoop every single Tuesday. Definitely get those super chats in. Here's a look at the super chat Hall of Honor. Let me take this off real quick. These are all the fans that contribute weekly. So thank you so much. And you can also hit the join button at the bottom of this video to become a member of either the Touchdown Club or the Loyalty Club. But just want to make sure that, super chats, they're basically like tips. And if you don't know how to use super chats, they're just right here. You click that $ sign right here, and that goes to the guest tonight, who's Andrew Bone. So thank you so much for all the contributions right here on BamaInsider.com. Before we get moving any forward, I want to tell you guys how to get free 30 days at BamaInsider.com. Now is a great time. Tons of team nuggets. You can get the recruiting scoop from Andrew. You can get those inside nuggets on the team that you can't get anywhere else. Here's how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. This is how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. First thing you got to do, go to BamaInsider.com and click on the top banner. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create an account, email, username, password. The second thing you're going to do is confirm your subscription. Make sure that the promo code is entered right here. It says promo successful, roll tide. The third thing you're going to do is enter your credit card information. It has to be valid, and don't worry, you're going to get that 30 days free. As you can see, once you've added a credit card, you're going to get the promo code. As you can see right here, it says $0. After that, you got to make sure and cancel within that 30 days if you don't want to be charged that $9.95. But hopefully, you're happy with all the coverage on BamaInsider.com, so you won't need to cancel. Once you're a premium subscriber of BamaInsider.com, you can access Andrew Bone's recruiting board. You can jump on the Talk of Champions message board and have a great time with thousands of Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. We hope to earn your business at BamaInsider.com. All right, great stuff. Here we go. All right, Randall Williams, thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. That goes right to Andrew Bone, so really helps out. And
thank you, Randall.
He's a big guy. So, Bone, we have a question coming in. We'll leave Randall Williams' super chat up there. But we had a user asking about, let me see if I can scroll up and find it. But for an update on Tyreak Sapp.
Yeah, Tyreak Sapp, Florida commitment, has expressed a little bit of interest in Alabama. We actually had an interview with Tyreak, I think a week or two ago on BamaInsider.com. It kind of broke down where things stood in his recruitment. Still pretty firm with Florida. As we know, Florida's having an outstanding recruiting class. Just like Alabama, I think they're currently sitting with the number 3 class in the country. I think that if they were on the outside and they were struggling and they weren't getting any good commitments, he would probably be looking elsewhere. But with when you get a lot of momentum and a lot of really good players on board, it certainly changes some things. Now he still mentions Alabama, mentions Ohio State as schools that he's very interested in. I mean, obviously being down at St. Thomas Aquinas, a school that Alabama's recruited extremely well through the years. I think that Alabama at least might have a chance with him, but I'm not predicting him to Alabama just yet. I think that he sticks with Florida, but I think Alabama at least gets 2 more defensive ends in this class, and there's just so many guys who are still out there that we've talked about. I mean, obviously they got Monkel Goodwine a couple of weeks ago. Tunmise Adeleye, Shemar Turner, Shambre Jackson, just a lot of guys who are out there. I mean, not to mention the elite 5-star guys that we've talked about, like Corey Foreman and JT Tuimoloau. So I still think Alabama's got a good chance to close strong at the defensive end position. But as of right now, I think Tyreak Sapp probably sticks with Florida. But let's kind of see how things play out over the course of the next few months.
All right, we're going to give Bone a quick break, and we'll be right back on BamaInsider.com. So I'm going to take over for just a short second while we get Andrew Bone situated. I wanted to talk to you guys about the running back position real quick. And if you didn't see, I just posted a video and it's highlighting the running backs. And hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Today, I'm providing a first look at the running backs, and we have to start out with Najee Harris, 6'2", 235 pounds. Hard to believe that he's returning for this season, right? Last season as a junior, 1,200 yards with 20 touchdowns. 7 of those touchdowns were actually receiving touchdowns, so you really started to see Najee Harris being utilized as a receiver out of the backfield, and I think that's one of those attributes that Najee Harris certainly has. All right, so you can watch that video in its entirety on BamaInsider.com. Also have a video on Bryce Young. And remember, Alabama will hold its first scrimmage this Saturday. So very exciting to see on the team side. So if you want to get the scoop and if you want to talk with us about the team scoop, definitely join my video, which will be Wednesday night. And, we'll talk team. I'll answer your questions and, we'll have some fun on Wednesday night tomorrow at 8 p.m. And we'll get you ready for Saturday. We'll also hear from Nick Saban. So definitely be sure and subscribe. We're almost close to 50,000 subscribers, making a push past 35 right now. So hit the thumbs up button. That certainly helps. And we're back here with Andrew Bone. All right, Bone. Glad to have you back. So as we were discussing, we talked about Tyreak Sapp, and we talked about JT Tuimoloau. We talked about The tight end position, we got a question coming in from Jacob, and that's regarding Brian Thomas. If Thomas commits to LSU, who do you think Bama will go after?
Yeah, Jalil Farouk, out of the DMV area. Yeah, as of right now, I think many people expect him to go to Oklahoma. I think he's probably I don't know if I would call him a backup plan because he's an elite player, but with Alabama having 3 wide receiver commitments, I mean, Brian Thomas certainly a top priority for them. I think Alabama is at least going to take a stab at Xavian Worthy out of California, recently committed to Michigan. But I think Alabama is still very, very much, interested in him, would love to add him as a part of this recruiting class. Destyn Pazon, another outstanding wide receiver from Louisiana. That's another guy that Alabama could really, push for and potentially get on board in this recruiting class. So, there's still some options out there. Alabama has 3 outstanding wide receiver commitments right now. I think, me personally, I think they could potentially be finished, but I think with Alabama, they really want to add one more guy in this class. So, Brian Thomas is probably the focal point right now. Like I said, still recruiting Xavian Worthy, Destyn Pazon. Those are some guys to kind of keep an eye on.
All right, we got a couple more super chats coming in, so thank you so much. All those go to Bam, to Andrew Bone. So we got nice. G Bama boy, thank you so much. That goes right to Bone. So thank you so much. And then we also got Bombs, always dropping bombs. So thank you so much. It says keep up the content. Thank you so much. And then we got Irving Larry. Do you see any of our commits, or do you see all of the commitments staying firm?
Yeah, I do. Irving, I think that most of these guys are pretty solid with their commitments. The good part about it is, as many people remember, Alabama only had, I think, 1 or 2 commitments in April. So it wasn't like they had loaded up and they had 10 or 12 commitments in April and May. I mean, most of these guys committed this summer. So most of them are pretty solid, and most of them have kind of enjoyed the recruiting process as much as they can. A lot of these guys have been recruited for a long time. It's not like these guys had started getting recruited in the spring and didn't take any visits. Now there's still some guys that are probably upset that they didn't get a chance to take some additional visits. But for the most part, I think all of them are very solid with their commitments. Are other schools still heavily pursuing some of them? Absolutely. And you never know what may happen in terms of, if kids are allowed to take official visits, if some decide to do that. But for the most part, I think Alabama, the kids who are currently committed to Alabama, I think all of them are very firm at this time.
All right, got one coming in. You already talked about the wide receivers a little bit, but got to take care of Vegas, man. Any news on Destyn Pazon?
Yeah, kind of like I said earlier, I just think with Alabama having 3 wide receiver commitments, all the focus is on Brian Thomas. Obviously still, like I mentioned, still recruiting Xavian Worthy a little bit. So I think they're going to kind of wait and see what happens. But Pazon is certainly a guy that they like a lot and have held in very high regard for a long time. So, it could be one of those situations where, Brian Thomas ends up at LSU. Pazon could end up at Alabama, but heavily favored to end up at Florida State at this time.
All righty. As we moving through the show, let's see what we got. Still got some questions, so thank you so much. I'm just kind of cruising through to make sure I don't double up. I think there was a question, and I think it was posted by Paul down at the bottom. I'll find it. But he was basically asking about this blanket NCAA waiver. And that means that if you've been following the news, I'm sure you guys have, the NCAA has allowed that everybody's going to be able to get an extra year eligibility, or this year is really not going to count against them. Bone, what's your take on that? I mean, think about it from this perspective. Every single guy could theoretically come back for next year. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's a bad thing when you look at recruiting? I mean, think about all these freshmen that usually get playing time at Alabama. They could theoretically almost kind of like this blanket red shirt and then come back. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's funny because I was asked this on a radio show earlier today, and I was kind of like, I didn't know. I was like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I hadn't even really thought about it, and it's going to be an interesting situation because, how many kids are you going to have on your team? Are you going to allow, 15 scholarship players on your team? I mean, I guess you're going to have to, and are some schools going to be able to do that? It's Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably not in a position yet where I know too much about it, where I really want to comment on it. You may know more than I do on it, and you may want to talk about it. But it's just this whole 2020 is just the weirdest year of our lives, and obviously it's getting even weirder with college football, and who knows what's going to happen.
Well, when we were talking with Jalen Milroe, and by the way, if you have more questions, post them in the comment box for Andrew Bone. We'll be around for a little bit longer. When you were talking with Jalen Milroe, I mean, how great of an interview was that? I mean, you want your quarterback to always have leadership abilities. I mean, that young man, so well spoken, great head on his shoulders. What's your take from him, not only as a young man but as a player on the field?
Yeah, great kid. It was great talking to him. I hadn't talked to him in over a year. I talked to him last summer after he camped in Tuscaloosa, and it almost seemed like he was going to commit to Alabama. But then obviously, Drake May committed instead. But very well spoken. Was a great interview. I encourage anyone who's watching the show tonight to go back, search for the Jalen Milroe interview that we did last weekend. It's outstanding. We're going to have more of those. So not just Jalen Milroe. We'll have some more Zoom interviews with commitments, to be on the lookout for those. But overall as a player, outstanding. Great arm. Can beat you with his arm or his legs. A lot of people want to call him a dual threat. Now he can run. I mean, he can break away and run, but he likes to stay in the pocket, and he can roll out of the pocket and make the throws. And I think he's an outstanding football player, and got a chance to be a really good player at the college level.
All right, Bone, while we have you here, while we have, almost, 400 viewers right now on our show through YouTube and on Facebook, thank you very much to everybody who's watching. You have a book that is available to purchase online. Can you tell everyone about your book? Bringing up right now, The Road to Bama, Incredible Twists and Improbable Turns Along the Alabama Crimson Tide Recruiting Trail. Tell everyone just briefly about the book and where they can get this book right now.
Yeah, really excited about my first book. I always kind of thought about writing a book, never really knew how to go about it. And luckily I was approached by Triumph Books, publishing company out of Chicago, about writing this book last year. And it was almost a year-long project. And it was really exciting to be able to interview several former Alabama greats, during the Bear Bryant years all the way through the Nick Saban years, and talking to just so many outstanding men. I mean, they're not, I was about to say kids, but they're not kids, they're men. Some are much older than me. Some are in the NFL right now. So it was really awesome talking to a lot of these guys, talking to coaches, talking to parents, talking to opposing coaches, guys who recruited these players from Auburn or from Georgia or from Florida State or wherever it may have been, and getting their perspective. So it was a lot of fun, and really excited about the release. It comes out on September the 29th, and you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can go to their websites right now and pre-order it. I think many people will really enjoy it. I mean, you think about some of the greatest players in Alabama history and some of their recruiting journeys, and it's in the book, and it's a lot of fun. So I made it an easy read. I thought about throwing in some some crossword puzzles and stuff like that in there, but we didn't do that. We just straight up read. But it's an easy read. Even somebody like me can read it. So I think many people are going to enjoy it.
All right, good stuff. We'll definitely put the link in the description box. And if you're listening, we also have a podcast, and we put a lot of these out on podcasts. So I know a lot of you are on the go, so you can't watch your phone while you're on your commute or whatever. So I'll make sure and drop that podcast link in the description box, along with where you can buy Andrew Bone's book. It looks like we knocked out, a lot of questions tonight. I mean, Alabama almost up to 20 commits. And just like Andrew was alluding to earlier, I have on the cover graphic that Alabama is number 1 in the recruiting rankings, which they are in Rivals. And just as Andrew said, that could change. Looks like Ohio State and Alabama are going to swap back and forth throughout these next couple of months. But that doesn't mean that Alabama's not going to retain that number 1 spot. Anything could certainly happen, and we'll see what happens going forward. But stay tuned for tons of coverage from BamaInsider.com. each weekend, we're going to try to get, at least one of the commitments in here to talk with Andrew Bone. We're also going to have some B-roll from some of the top players from the state of Alabama. So tons of coverage coming your way. Also got your team coverage as Alabama gears up for the 2020 season. I hope you guys have been enjoying all the content on BamaInsider.com. Definitely take advantage of that 30-day free promo. Bone, did you have a good time tonight?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I know we started a little bit later this evening than we normally do. We usually start the show at 8 o'clock. My wife's actually going out of town for the weekend, so we went out for a nice dinner. So went to a new restaurant here in Birmingham called Helen that was outstanding. And so if anybody is in the Birmingham area looking for a new place to go eat, Helen is an outstanding restaurant. So we really enjoyed that this evening, and glad to get in here and answer questions from Alabama fans, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. And be sure to if you have any other questions, come to BamaInsider.com. This isn't just a Tuesday night thing for us. This is an everyday thing for us, and we're on Bama Insider every single day, taking questions, putting out content, and obviously Kyle and Tony and Tyler do a great job putting out team coverage, and I take care of things on the recruiting trail for us.
Hey, Bone, can we answer 2 more questions that just came in before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's knock out one on Shambre Jackson.
Yeah, Shambre Jackson, put out a top 5 here recently. I still think that it's an Alabama-Florida State battle for him. He kind of keeps things pretty quiet, doesn't really say too much, but everyone thinks he's going to end up at Florida State. I think that Alabama's very, very strongly in the race for him. Would not be surprised if he ended up at Alabama. Now, if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably say Florida State, but I certainly think that Alabama is a very strong contender in his recruitment, and they're still pushing for him, even though they have Monkel Goodwine on board, and there's several other targets who are out there. We continue to mention Tunmise Adeleye and Shamar Turner, and obviously Corey Foreman and JT Tuimoloau, Tyreak Sapp. Shambre Jackson, a guy they're still pushing for, and would love to add his commitment in this class.
All right, let's get another one in. This will be our last one of the night. This is on Xavian Sorey.
Yeah, Xavian Sorey, one of the, in my opinion, one of the top overall athletes in the country out of IMG Academy. Alabama's, certainly pressing hard for him, and they really want him to be the final piece at the linebacker position in this recruiting class. Did take an unofficial visit up to Georgia this past weekend. Georgia is certainly a strong contender in his recruitment. I mean, all his top 5 schools are all in the SEC, with Alabama, LSU, Georgia and Florida and Auburn. But I think it comes down to Alabama and Georgia at this time. I know a lot of people think Florida's, certainly high on his list as well. So, maybe a top 3. But in my opinion, I think it's probably going to be one of those 3 schools, and might be an interesting battle between Alabama and Georgia, because a lot of Georgia. I keep hearing a lot of Georgia talk about him, but I think Alabama's been there from the get-go, and they're going to continue to be there. So we'll see what happens. But we saw this interesting battle between Georgia and Alabama. I feel like we see this linebacker battle between these 2 programs year in and year out, and we saw that earlier with Dallas Turner earlier this year, and now it looks like it's going to be a very tight battle with Xavian Sorey.
All right, good stuff, Bone. Thank you to everyone that joined us tonight. Be sure and smash that thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe. Try to make it to 50,000 subscribers by December 2020. It sounds like a goal, so definitely help us get there. And thanks to everyone who helped tonight. The super chats and all that goes back to Bone. He does such a great job for us at BamaInsider.com. So thank you to everyone. Randall Williams, especially with that $20 super chat. Thank you very much. It's really gracious of you. So catch us back at BamaInsider.com. Tons of coverage coming your way as Alabama will hold their 6th practice tomorrow. B-roll for you. We also get a chance to hear from Nick Saban on Saturday. So tons of coverage coming your way, and possibly another commit, just as Andrew said. So lots to watch for on BamaInsider.com. Take advantage of that free 30-day promo, which is simply Roll Tide. I'm Kyle Henderson. He's Andrew Bone. We'll catch you back at BamaInsider.com. Have a great night, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us.